What is the difference between a MSA or Master Service Agreement and a SLA, a service level agreement when it comes to an MSP? Do you need both? Is it worth having both? What is the real differences? Because you've probably heard MSA, SLA, MSP, all these three-letter, words in a weird way. You've probably heard them a million times. Well, I am bringing clarity to all of that in this video. Believe it or not, there is some pretty big differences between the two, so you're not going to want to miss the entire video. My name is Harrison Barron from growth-generators.com. We help MSPs with sales training and marketing. Before I get into today's video, as always, it's just my due diligence. There's a link down below for the masterclass. Go check it out. There's some helpful links down below the masterclass. Go check those out. And if you're like, Harrison, I need more value, join the Discord. That's all I can tell you. It's a bunch of MSPs helping other MSPs grow their businesses. It's incredible. The success stories, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work for different people, different personality types, helping other different personality types, growing their business. It's the French kiss. It's the greatest thing in the world. I'm glad I get to bring everyone together in there. That's it. That's all I got for you as far as that kind of like beginning part of it. So let's talk about MSAs and SLAs. A A Master Service Agreement, an MSA, is very different than a SLA, a Service Level Agreement. There is some key differences that you really have to understand. Now, sometimes both of these documents can go directly into the MSA. Think of the MSA as the big brother to both of them, right? And he just kind of envelops it, and that's really it. As weird as that sounds. But there's a lot of differences between the two, and you have to understand that. And in most cases, there's going to be two separate documents. You're going to have your MSA and you're going to have your SLA, and they're going to be stacked right on, or better yet, stacked right on top of each other, MSA, SLA, underneath every single time you bring on probably a fairly large client at this point. And if you're using an MSA, you're probably going to be a slightly bit ahead of the pack as far as size. Could be 3, 4, 500,000, even $1 million. But I would say at around the $100,000 mark, you're gonna need an MSA. You should have an SLA right off the bat. It is very, very important. So let's talk about a MSA. So an MSA is a comprehensive contract that outlines general terms and conditions of the MSP, the work that they're gonna do, and how they plan on doing it. That's really kind of it, as crazy as that sounds. It contains payments, it contains deliveries, dispute resolution, confidentiality, data protection. I'm reading off my list because it's a lot, the responsibilities of each party. It may also cover terms and conditions. It usually will, but obviously everybody is on a case-by-case basis. Liabilities that you might have, and hopefully you're having a lawyer go through, especially if you watch the last video on it, and intellectual property rights, which is something I didn't include in the last video. IP, intellectual property, is something really important. And if your process or what you do to help companies ends up making them grow, that process that you put in place is part of your intellectual property. And in your MSA, it's going to define all of that. But an MSA is kind of like a real rock solid agreement. When the client signs and you sign the agreement, there's a really solid understanding of what's going to happen, not only today, but in the future, as far as projects go, anything that is really going to be happening. It helps with all future transactions. It helps with all future projects. It helps with all future upgrades. It's really, really important to have that document. And every once in a while, you're probably going to update it. Make sure your clients at least agree to the newest one if it fits them. You kind of want to try to have one, so you only have to look at one on your wall, but it's gonna make life a lot easier having one of them, and it does cover the rear end, which is really, really important. So now that we've talked about an MSA, let's talk about an SLA, a service level agreement. And just like you hear it, a master is typically above, and that service level agreement is typically below. But an SLA is the contract between an MSP and the client. And that it really boils down to the contents inside of it. So the contents are going to be really how their core services that they're getting are really defined. So your MSA is going to cover projects and all of that. Your SLA is going to cover what they really want, which is when something goes wrong, they pick up the phone and call you and things get addressed. This is the big difference. Your SLA is the level of service that you're providing to a customer, where an MSA is more of everything. So as your service level agreement, you really want to have it so the customer can expect turnaround times, when things are going to be happening, the help desk support, when somebody's going to be helping them on any issues that they have, whether it's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And it really goes through that and what the customer can expect when something goes wrong and they pick up the phone and say, hey, my computer is not printing to that printer. That's really the most important part about it. So when you're thinking about it, a service level agreement is your service. Your master is everything. And a lot of times, once again, you have your master, you have your service kind of right underneath it. The master kind of encompasses a lot of your SLA. But the key difference is the scope. The scope and what it actually contains is really important. SLA, service, master, everything, which is why your master is probably going to come down the road. And it's not uncommon. Sometimes there's clients that you're going to have and they're like, well, what's your MSA? Or can I see your SLA? And you have to be ready, fairly ready to, and I'm just looking for a prop here, but you have to be ready to present that at fairly reasonable time frame, a day or two, because you should have this already and you should be having all of your clients agree to it. It might change a little bit client to client, but for the most part, it's going to be the same. But you want to have that master, and then your SLA can be modified depending on the company. If they want less service, you might be able to use that as a bargaining chip to lower the price. Or if they want more service, your master can almost stay the same, but you're going to have to modify your service level agreement. But your master also, as far as functionality goes, is going to cover projects, payments, all of that good stuff. Service level agreement is just services. So you can define some of that in the services, which is great, but ultimately your master is going to have all of that clearly defined, whether it's net 30, net 60, day of payment, what happens if there's a late payment, all of that, how you're going to get paid is super, super important. Your SLA, never going to have that. It probably won't, unless you're just starting your MSP. You might want to sneak a couple of those things on your SLA, but otherwise, those are going to be the two differences. And last but not least, as far as the major differences go, is frequency. Your master is going to get updated very infrequently. And when you do, you're going to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, and you are going to look at every little aspect in there, because this is going to help you grow your business. It's going to help your money. It's going to help you grow. It's going to help you figure out projects, how much manpower you need, in a whole variety of different areas. It is important to have. Whereas on the flip side of things, your SLA, you might modify your SLA fairly frequently depending on the client's needs. Now, I would probably recommend not doing that. You want to keep them even across the board. It'll just give you a lot more brain space and reasons to not have to think all the time. But you can modify your SLA depending on the client. Maybe a client wants additional service or wants a faster response time. You can build that into the SLA and still keep your master the same, because the master is just defining the payments and your SLA is going to be defining the service that they're going to be getting and the quality of service that they're going to be getting. So they are very similar, but they have a lot of differences between the two. I know this was an adrenaline pumper. I promise you that one. Trust me. But if you want to take a second, and I would appreciate it if you would just hit that like button, maybe that subscribe button, even that notification bell. And if you have questions about MSAs, a MSA, I almost said MSP, and that's why I'm laughing, an MSA, an SLA, differences, pros, cons, and maybe your experience is slightly different or even completely different, please leave it down in the comments below. I'm very curious. This is a very exciting topic that I feel passionate about. Totally kidding, but it is something that you need to know about. And I've done all the homework for you so that way you know it. I know SLAs, I know MSAs. I had to look for the difference because I was like, what actually is it? And I did some crazy deep dives. It was a lot. It's a lot of reading. It's not the most exciting. At the end of the day, cover your rear end, have a lawyer look over it, have your friends and family and even maybe employees look over it to make sure that it makes sense to everyone and you fully understand what you're prepared to get yourself into. So hope you guys found value in this video. If you did, like I said, like, subscribe, share, notify. I don't know, stream it for your dog. This one will definitely calm them down and put them to sleep. So I appreciate that, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Love you guys. Bye.